Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show that talks about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and we share our incredible stories of awakening, of synchronicity, of magical moments, of profound insights, of, just things that really inspire us that we just go, I can't believe that just happened. I have to share it with you. This is amazing. And so we have like an amazing story to share with you today. It's like pretty cool. So I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird. I love having these conversations. It's like my favorite thing to do, and I'm so blessed I get to do this. And I'm really grateful that I get to do it because you keep listening and tuning in. So thank you for doing that. And I really appreciate all of you that have liked and commented on iTunes. It's such a blessing. We got a lot of nice reviews up there. Thank you so much for that. Helps us reach more people. You can do it anywhere you want, YouTube, iTunes, wherever you like. Just, give us a shout out and help us find more people that need this information. So we're really, really excited today. Berni Slowey is back on the show. Berni, welcome back.
Hello. Hi, Carrie. Thank you so much for inviting me back to your show.
Well, I couldn't
And also,
resist.
and congratulations on the success of your book, Second Wave.
Thank you so much. International bestseller in 5 countries.
That is awesome. Good for you.
I spent like a week screen capturing everything to make sure, I had proof. But yeah, it's still at the top of the charts. It's amazing. It's going great. It's reaching everybody that needs it.
But yes, and the world does need it. And so thank you for writing it, having it as a gift to the world.
Thank you. And thank you for all that you do. Like you guys, you remember back, it was almost 2 years ago, Berni and I did our interview called Setting the Cobra Free. And we talked about her journey to in her youth and this fateful day that her 2-year-old sister went missing as they were leaving the country, and they left her sister behind, and there's this whole big terrible tragedy and trauma. And Berni did this amazing film that she produced and directed and co-wrote and starred in, and it was award-winning. It was a feature-length documentary called Berni's Journey. And so this is like, it followed her through her personal transformation with people that we know and love, like Jennifer Huff, who we love.
Yes.
And it was amazing. It was amazing. The spiritual teachers through India and Harrison, and who else was on there? Who else?
Marbeth Dunn.
Harrison
Klein. And so, those are the other 3 ABC members.
Yeah, they're all with the evolutionary.
And Stephen Hobbs. Stephen Hobbs, who is an amazing man.
With the Evolutionary Business Council. Amazing. So this was a great movie. And if you guys didn't check it out yet, you can check it out. And we'll give you links to that, of course. But here is the coolest freaking thing. If you remember, as part of that broadcast that we did with Berni, her sister was missing and she didn't know her sister. And so the whole thing was just about Berni, facing her inner demons and about like losing her sister and the sense of responsibility she had. I mean, you were only like 5 or something. So it was kind of ridiculous for you to be.
I wasn't even, I think given the timing, that's one of the mysteries about what happened. I'm not sure, but I was either 3 or just turning 4.
3 or 4 years old, and Berni carried around this responsibility her whole life as she felt responsible for her sister missing. And it was a huge burden for her. And she talked about that. We talked about that in the so if you don't remember it, go back and watch it because your mind's about to be blown. So guess what? You're not going to believe this story. I mean, when I saw it on Facebook, Berni, I was like, what is going on?
I'm still, to this day, I have to pinch myself because this incredible miracle.
It's a miracle. So you guys know that there's these DNA test companies on Ancestry.com and these places. I'm getting chills. And it makes it possible for anyone to discover hidden stories about who they are and their origin. And it connects people who have been disconnected. This is exactly the tool, this DNA test, that connected Berni back to her sister Rose. Isn't that amazing? Berni, take it away, because this is like, this is so unbelievable. I had to have you back on the show.
Yeah. Carrie, the things that that we're really aware of, right? It comes down to the fact that we have technology that is available to us, and it is so reasonable. And that it was actually my sister, Rose, who found our family through a $99 DNA test through Family Tree, thinking that we had lost her forever. and there was no way to trace her. And yet, because of a simple swab, she finds my cousin, who then was able to locate me and my family. And so after 44 years, the miracle of a reunion, and it was incredible. And yes, to your point, Carrie, when I talked about making Berni's journey and that time with the cobra, where it was like the cobra bringing me back to life, and sharing that story, that in one sense that my life kind of numbed a little bit when my sister was lost in a courtyard, to being brought back alive with that cobra. And so it's really interesting how like that cobra moment, 8 years later, coming back to where my sister's story, because she didn't even know that she was adopted until May of 2018, and she would have been 45 at that time. So this
Wow.
was something that she just only learned about. And I had learned that my mother always told me that that little girl that went missing that day, that was a cousin. And I thought that was the case because my aunt was watching us when my sister went missing. And so it wasn't until 1995 that we were sitting around. I actually went back to Vietnam with my mother after 20 years of evacuating, just days before the Fall of Saigon. And my mom pulls out the same picture that she'd always looked at and was crying over. And I'd ask about this little girl, and my mother always told me that it was a cousin. So when I went to Vietnam and discovered that this little girl is actually my sister, like being in that courtyard all over again, just like, I can't believe that this is a missing family member. But here's the tragedy, is that my sister didn't know she was adopted until she was 45 years old. And we never spoke about my sister. We never, I didn't know that she was my sister, but really we didn't talk about her very much until my mother was really the last days of her life, where I know that she was experiencing a lot of regret and just sadness of not ever being reunited with her lost daughter. So when she came back into our lives, the first thing that came back to the forefront was that I always wanted to do a movie after coming back from Berni's journey in India, that I wanted to take my mother to Vietnam and do another production calling it Finding Rose, so that we thought maybe in doing the movie that word would get out and some young girl, would learn that, hey, I was missing and I don't know who my family is. And so I thought maybe through the movie it would be a way to reconnect. But then my mother died in 2012, and so I thought the project died as well. And so now this amazing miracle that she's back in our lives, and Rose is such a wonderful woman.
Well, this is a really incredible story, and unfortunately, it has a dark lining. I this is such an interesting thing. So we can focus on the miracle. Definitely, let's give the fact that the miracle is that she got connected through her inner inspiration to go get a DNA test, and that the technology was available, and that against all odds and all obscuring of information, she was able to get reconnected with you, and that you have this
Yes.
beautiful relationship now. Like, that is
Oh,
the miracle, right?
it
That's a
is. It
beautiful
is.
thing.
And I do believe that my mother, now that she's passed away, she's on the other side wanting to bring us together. And that's what I thought. It was just the gift of the reunion. I think it's so much more now.
Yeah,
And
like we're gonna go some places, people, that are uncomfortable for people, because um well, we have a long tradition on earth of family secrets.
oh, I think that has happened because of whatever, it's so many people I've spoken to after sharing what happened after the production and learning all these things that we didn't know about, and family members and how they behave. And, I thought at first when she came into our lives and the dynamics of the family was going to change. It's just like having somebody, in your family who passes away, and you always hear about the dynamics of the family changing after a death. Well, it's very much the same, except, even when somebody's coming into our lives, back into our lives, and how the dynamics can change. But I didn't realize there was a lot of, probably as a result of some of the cover up or the things that were told to me, particularly from my mother, that my father's disputing. And he's very upset about this project because I think what he's recognizing is that he thought these secrets that would just remain secrets. But DNA, and not just DNA, we look at social media, and I think it's because of this era of the need and really the healing benefits of transparency.
The
That's
healing
what's coming to
benefits of
the forefront.
yes, the healing benefit of transparency. Like it actually hurts to lie. Like lies cause a lot
I
of
think
hurt.
we keep it in our body. Yes.
And it's misinformation. And I've been through a little bit of this. I didn't know who my natural father was, his name, until I was 14. And I always thought it was the first stepfather's name. Like I didn't actually know who my natural father was until I was 14, and my mom said, "Okay, well, we have to get you your social security card. So now we're going to tell you the truth because here's your birth certificate." I, I
Oh.
felt like, okay, so first of all, it confirmed for me why I always felt like there was an elephant in the room. Like I always had this weird feeling like I didn't have all the information and it wasn't entirely accurate, but I didn't have any proof to substantiate the feeling that I had. Like I had no external
Mm.
reason to think
Yeah.
that, but I always felt it was being lied to and I always felt it was wrong, but I didn't
And
know the details. I didn't actually know what it was until
but
she
you felt
told me.
it. Yeah, you
Yeah,
had the total intuition. My
yeah.
sister did too. She had it in her core. She knew that there wasn't something that her family was telling her. And even when she asked 5 different times in the course of her life, am I adopted? Whether she'd heard tidbits from other family members or people would just say, you look nothing like your family. And, her mother had shared a lot of these stories to kind of like have to, when you tell a story, you end up having to cover up and there's
Another
another story
lie.
to cover that one, to cover that one. And so it becomes this never ending, almost kind of like, well, what is the truth anymore? And I think it becomes so much of a practice that, and I have learned recently that it's being counterfactual. So if you don't like the truth, you end up formulating whatever truth that you want to believe. And then you tell yourself that enough times, or you tell it to others enough time that you truly start to believe it. That you
Yeah,
don't even
it's
understand what is truth anymore, or it's like truth becomes subjective.
truth becomes subjective. Well, okay, there's another added ripple to this is that like what you're going through where you know what your mom told you was the truth. Now she's not here to defend it. And now other people don't like that version of the truth or whatever.
Well, and
And so
Carrie,
now
I
it's like
don't,
trying to tell you that you don't know what you're talking about. Like that's
but
happened to me
here's the
too.
thing. First of all, let's look at the backdrop again. And this is probably similar to what if you think of family secrets, most likely it's a result of a circumstance, a situation that you have to make a decision. And it usually is because of some kind of shame or guilt surrounding the decision, right? And so my mother, I don't know if she was telling the truth. I just know that she had told me this, and she had told her friend of 30 years in the United States, another Vietnamese friend of hers. So this is also, think about it, it's a cultural thing. So not only was this happening during the war and it's chaos,
Chaos.
but
Yeah,
you
we
had the culture.
forgivable, right? Because there's all this stuff. You got to make these quick decisions and there's emotions and there's fear
Yes.
and yeah, it's a lot
And
of
I
stuff
think
going on.
whether you're a soldier or you're a civilian, when you are in a war-torn country, you're going to have PTSD,
And if you
right?
have war at your home, if yeah, and that was
Mm-hmm.
definitely the case with my mom. There was a war going on, at least with the first stepfather. So there's a lot going on. Yeah, it's a tumultuous situation. Okay.
Yes. So given the fact that I don't know what my mother's true story is, and that my dad is wanting to dispute, and he has a lot of fury around the story, because the fact of the matter is that my dad never believed that Rose was his biological daughter. And so what is coming to the surface when he found out that Rose had entered our lives again. She's back because of the DNA test. He just couldn't fathom it. And he thought it was a prank. And I think he just kind of just like, it's, we'll never find her. I don't have to worry about ever really talking about it. Even after we asked questions, I mean, it wasn't about like, I'm so remorseful about what happened. And I'm so sad. I wish I would have had time to actually, or I would have done more to look for her. That even whatever the decisions or what prompted the decisions that my mom had to make, that for him he could really set, in a kind of a redemption, in creating this new relationship with her. But instead, I think because of his guilt, he couldn't meet her and he couldn't form a relationship with her. Because when he learned about my sister, if it were me and I had a missing child, I'd be on that first flight to reunite with my baby.
Yeah, exactly. And, questions of paternity aside, there's DNA tests to clarify that kind of stuff, right?
Well, and that already was the case because Rose found us through my father's lineage. It was his side of the family that she found us. So when I learned about this woman reaching out, that she was saying, I'm a little girl that was lost, or I'm looking for my family. I was a little girl, maybe 2 years old, lost on the streets of Saigon, and I'm looking for anyone who has served in the Vietnam War. And of course, that's why, like, this is my sister. But we didn't know if she was still in Vietnam and that she'd moved here. So coincidentally, as a result of the Homecoming Act, the Amerasian Homecoming Act, that she was the blessing of this adoptive family that took her in when she was 2 years old. And she was the reason why they were able to come to the United States. So, I mean, she was really a good luck charm for them in so many ways. I mean, you have to watch the movie.
Yeah. Oh, wow. This is
such a
fascinating.
childhood. Yeah. I mean, her childhood was so different from her siblings, and she never understood why she felt like she was treated like Cinderella. And the fact that not only did she look different, was treated different. And I think that they ended up loving her. I mean, I think that you do that, and especially with who she is, it's hard not to. I mean, she really has taken care of her family in so many ways, including her mother, who finally told her when she was being told that she was going to be moving from the home care to a nursing home. And it was because the mother basically said, hey, after all I've done for you, and you're going to move me into a nursing home after I took you off the streets and adopted you and brought you into my
Oh,
family.
so it was a mother guilt thing that she got told. Oh,
I think it was like that desperation of like, no, I don't want to be moved to a nursing home. And it was just like probably this,
this brings up so many things, Berni. Like this.
It does. It's because
the webs we weave when we practice to deceive.
Yes. And because when being asked so many different times, but I couldn't believe how not only her mother, but the whole family, it was like they were all telling the same story for self-preservation or whatever.
And they do that. They tell so, all right. This is really the difficult spot to be in for anybody tuning into this broadcast. You're probably a light worker. You're somebody that's called to tell the truth. You're somebody that's called to set things straight, and raise up the energy. And so it's a difficult spot because, we can be very sensitive people, right? We can be very heart open and sensitive. And in that, we want to be loved, right? We want to be loved. We want to be held. We want to be supported. We want to be included. We want to be like loved. And sometimes though, we're called to do things that are very disruptive, like expose family secrets. And that doesn't result in love sometimes. That results in exclusion.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
well, so Carrie, I know we're going to be linking, we're going to provide a link to the story that PBS4 did on our reunion, which it's a tearjerker because at the time we didn't know all of the story. And so really it's this beautiful reunion, and it's unfortunate that she doesn't get to meet our mother who passed away in 2012. Yeah. So because I knew that I wanted to do a movie way back in 2011, 12, before my mother passed away, when I knew that she was my sister and we confirmed it through DNA testing, right? We have 5 siblings that, from my mom and dad, all biologically the same parents. And I knew that I wanted to be able to go back to Vietnam with my sister so that when she was meeting my mother's family and our half-brother Tin, who is 3 or 4 years older than me, that from another relationship that my mom had, the father ended up dying in the war before she met my father. So here we are, all these years later, and confirming that she's our sister, wanting to capture this beautiful moment. Then when she goes back to Vietnam to meet our family, our half-brother, to go through where she lived and where she grew up and what her life was like, to only learn that all these other things started popping up. The fact that she only lived a half a mile away. She grew up a half a mile away with her adoptive family where she was actually lost. Then it was like, well, that seems odd. Then it was, wait a second, all these stories that we're collecting contradict each other. And, they almost like talking over each other, like, no, this is what happened. No, this is what happened. No, this is what happened. And it wasn't clear, other than, if you recall that I talked about my aunt coming down the stairs and she's asking me about where somebody is. And I'm so young, I'm not even sure who she's talking about. And realizing that somebody went lost, and she blamed me. She looked at me and scolded me for not watching her. And to go back to Vietnam just this last June to learn that that's the same story she tells to this day. So whatever that guilt was that I felt, hearing it again as an adult, it not only was it cathartic, but it was almost laughable. Here's
Yeah,
another
a
example
3-year-old.
of an adult wanting to deflect the blame that she wasn't watching us. And in fact, she apparently was playing cards, and that she was expecting me to watch my sister, who I didn't even know at the time was my sister, 2-year-old sister, let alone, whether I'm 3 or 4. That's the other thing that's being contested right now by my father, is the timing. And so here it is that she's telling that same story. When we talked to, when I interviewed Rose's adoptive mother, and how, just the way that the story is kind of disjointed a little bit, the way that my dad's behavior, we started to just tap into a little bit more and realized, no, we're probably never going to learn what exactly happened that day, because the truth is subjective. It's what everybody needs to tell themselves in order for them to feel good about what happened. And the truth,
Absolutely.
because we don't really think that it was a legitimate adoption. I think it was one of those things that, because of the chaos, they said, here is a young girl who's adorable, she's cute, we're going to keep her. And that's what her mom said, you were cute, so we kept you. But I also, when I learned that the adopted mother lost a 2-year-old daughter, it seemed a little coincidental that she would take on the name of the missing daughter, the dead daughter, and also assumed the birthday of the dead daughter.
Wow.
Yeah, so it just kind of seemed too coincidental, maybe, of the arrangement potentially that happened. And I don't know that we'll ever prove it and how much deeper we need to go, other than it's likely that she just didn't walk off. And that my father, who never believed that she was his biological daughter, may have just prompted these decisions that my mom had to make, as far as if we're going to evacuate and leave Saigon, I only have a passport for myself and my daughter, Berni. And so does she need to make an arrangement then for my sister Rose? So,
Wow.
we don't know. All we know is that these are secrets that have been kept for a very long time, likely to, these stories have changed, or they are going to be contradicting each other. And regardless of when the timing was, it happened, and the reunion happened. But as a result, we were coming into those, I mean, it was such an emotionally charged production in Vietnam, because I think she's realizing, okay, maybe I just didn't walk off and my family adopted me. You know, she's having to like go through that realization. And I'm going through the realization about, wow, what stories, how many other stories were told to us that aren't true. And especially because we never spoke about it. Everything was under, like, my grandmother didn't know. My two aunts didn't know about my sister Rose. So if we're not talking about it, and then all of a sudden this revelation comes to us, what if, I was thinking, what if my mom never did tell me that she was my sister? And then, you know, Rose comes into our life and it's a mystery to all of us. Like, who is this woman? You know, like, where did she come from? Would my dad have ever stepped forward and said, here's what happened? Or with his truth, we'd only have his side of the story versus what my mom wanted to convey to us. But the bottom line is that we know that the decisions that were made had major impact.
Major
And
impact, yeah. And I
major
think that's
impact.
really the lack of understanding of that generation. Like, I think in that older generation, you know, our parents' generation, they just thought, oh, little kids don't know anything. Like, little kids aren't aware of this. They don't really know anything. They'll just forget all about it if we just don't talk about it. And you can just brush it under the rug and it'll be forgotten. Like, that's what they thought.
I think you're so right, Carrie. I
And
think
that's not
it is
true.
a generational thing.
We don't do that. Like, now we have technology, right? Like, we have tools. Like, in my healing, with my first healing, the core wound was that first thing that happened to me, you know, where I was taken from my natural father, or there's this moment. And it's like right there, you know, in the etheric space of my soul body. It's right accessible there. And anything that I experienced, like, I started having memories at that point of like being 3 and being whacked by my first stepfather. And, you know, I mean, these are things that we can have memories of. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we do have memories of it. And even if we have a specific memory, we have this weird feeling, like the elephant in the room feeling, like there's something really important that I don't know that's being kept from me.
Yes, and I think it's going to, because my sons were born through me, and what I, you know, that moment even at that 4-year-old where I'm being blamed, I see that trait of like always assuming that I was going to be blamed for something, right? It was going to be my fault. I grew up with that. That's why I overcompensated. So I talk about like why I became this control freak perfectionist. I was never going to be good enough because I always had to prove myself over and over again. I see that same behavior in my son. And I don't want, you know, I'm sad that that's something that I transferred to him. But that shows why this generational impact, not only in the lives, the immediate people involved, but then their children and their children's children. And then this ancestral thing that I think that happens as light bearers, that they're saying, please, one of you come forward to break that chain, break the cycle so that the family karma can be released.
Because it's
And
a bigger picture. You know, this is the
mhm,
thing I kept trying to explain to my mom. I am not against you, okay? Like, I know that everything you did was to protect me. In your point of view, that's what you were doing. I get that. But this is a bigger pattern. Like, we have to talk about it, because these patterns like run through DNA systems. They run through the DNA. And at the
yeah,
very least, on my natural father's side, all those patterns that I experienced in my life when I like went in my crazy midlife thing, that was directly from my lineage, like from the fact that his mother, he suffered from these patterns, his mother did. Who knows if it went back further. Like, these are things that had to be understood, and in terms of family patterns,
yeah. Well, that saying, the sins of the father, you
they
know,
revisit it upon the kids. This is literal. Like, yeah, and I've navigated this so many ways now with so many clients. I know this to be true. And like Gary Stewart, who wrote in my book, The Second Wave, he wrote about constellations and ancestry. He does all this work with the ancestry. This is the kind of stuff that's the technology that I'm talking about. Like, if we become aware of this, we don't have to be taking it personally. We just need to deal with it. Like, reveal the family secrets, uncover it, and do something about it.
When I think this is even, when we talk about the secrets and how they can actually eat at us internally, right?
Yeah.
So my mother had a stroke. Her mother, Rose's adopted mother, had a stroke. My father isn't well, mentally or physically. And it does take that toll on us. But even more so, and again, this is kind of going outside of, when you're talking family constellation, there's an energy that is transferred, spoken or unspoken. The children know it,
They know.
especially in these generations that are being born. They're hypersensitive, right? My oldest is an indigo, and my younger son, we're not sure, but he's probably crystal, and he's like on the cusp. But they already know there's something, just like what you were saying. I knew it. I didn't know how to explain it, but you hold it. And so then it becomes that energetic transfer. And I truly believe that with the ancestral karma that we're meant to. And I think that the more we speak our truth, it doesn't hold us, right? And because I've been able to probably get the training wheels for my first project, A Berni's Journey, about being authentic and just transparent, I'm like, no surprise, then this would come up. And here again, it's all about transparency and authenticity. That it's so important for us because I think that ultimately we are going to be required to behave and not to place judgment, right? Like, hey, my
Right.
parents were
This
young.
stuff happened. I mean,
Yeah, my parents were young. It was during the war. There was chaos, not sure what to do. Do I trust you? Do I want to be with you forever? I have to make this decision. But, and her mother and her family, not telling Rose for 45 years where she wasn't able to meet our mother, and asking asked 5 times, am I
she
adopted?
thought something was wrong.
Yes. And to not ever be able to tell the truth is just, that's the damaging part of not being able to live authentically, transparent, to our truths, and just own it, right? Because I think that whole concern about being judged and, holding those regrets, that is more, I think, detrimental than the action itself.
It's like inner acid. Like it just wears away at you. And I've seen it happen, and the thing about it is that it can destroy relationships within the family because you don't talk about it. There's this underlying knowing that it's there and guilt. And then it builds up and then there's resentment because now there's like almost like this weird resentment of having to hold the lie to protect you. And like there's like an anger towards the kid. Like I felt this. It's weird. And I'm
We've
like,
talked about
why
this,
are you
Carrie.
mad at me? I mean,
Yes.
I didn't make the lie. So
No, I had to go through a lot of, when my mother passed away, I felt like I did have an opportunity to make amends with her in some way. And I always joke about the fact that we have a great relationship now.
yeah, she's on the other side of the veil.
On the other
See,
side.
I love that part because when they're on the other side of the veil, they totally get it now. They see everything
Mhm.
and they're like, oh, that's why. And
Yes.
I
And she's
mean,
a great listener.
great listener.
She's a wonderful listener now. And,
Good
asking
relationship.
for, yeah, and just asking for validation. I know she's
Yeah.
pinging me. She's pinging me. She's done so many things to like make this happen. So I know that I'm on the right path, but it's not easy because it was what you were saying earlier about like, we can become the enemy. My dad sees me as the enemy,
Right
even my
now.
siblings, where he's, that he's kind of have that by his way of being manipulative, he has been able to convince them that this isn't a good project, or this is all, it's because of my own self-interest and benefit. And so, and he's a narcissist, by the way, and so they're masters at that,
Totally. Yeah.
like gaslighting,
The
and
gaslighting.
I'm just, yep, and I
Gaslighting is
just have
driven by guilt. It's totally driven by inner wounding and guilt. That's where it comes from. And it's like this weird thing from that era, right? A lot of people wanted to look perfect. And so they
well,
like they
I
don't
totally
hang
get
their
that.
dirty laundry out, right? Like that's that whole paradigm.
That's another thing. Well, and you think about even with war, when I speak to a lot of my friends whose parents, either they were veterans or even Vietnamese families impacted by the war, and they've now, immigrated to the United States, they don't talk about it. Their parents or grandparents do not talk about the war. Too painful. So let's just suppress it, suppress the feelings
But it's
so
like
that we don't have to deal with
a
it.
freaking volcano. I mean, like it's just boiling under the surface, and then the first thing happens. I, this is the thing, Bernie. We have to feel it to heal it.
I love that. I love that. And it's, again, I think it's not only just feeling of it, it's almost like because we have to share the story, right? When the more that you share, the less of a hold it has, the less feeling of shame and guilt that results. And that's, again, just from my experience from Bernie's journey, that, I wanted to also appear perfect, because that's what we did. It was kind of like, you don't tell other people about, what your childhood is about. But my children still are my best teachers. My son said to me, he said, whatever your childhood was, you cannot hang that over my head as to the excuses as to why you behave the way you do. He's
Yeah,
like,
this new
your childhood
generation.
and what you
Woo.
want me. Yes, they're smart. That's what I'm saying. To be the best of leaders as a light bearer is to lead by example. And yes, it's going to be very difficult. And unfortunately, I have people like you, Carrie. I have people in my community, my friends, my husband, my boys. They are supportive of me telling this story. And one day, I'm hoping that my family, my siblings, Rose is on board, and I've told her, at any given time that you feel really uncomfortable about what's happening and what we're learning, you let me know. I don't want to destroy our relationship over this. But in the meantime, it doesn't stop me from, I can still talk about it. I can still write the book that is going to come as a result. And the more that I do it, and maybe eventually as they see that, wow, because I am healing that 4-year-old who thought that I was responsible for something really terrible happening, and that left a major imprint on my soul. And now I can actually not only heal myself, but I don't need to put that onto my children. I don't need to put that, because I think as parents, if we don't understand why we're doing what we're doing because of the result of, like, we've brushed it under the rug, as you said, or, it's like stuffed down, way down enough, and then we surprise ourselves by the way that we conduct ourselves as parents. Again, it's all those implications for the generations to come, because my children are going to learn about with the parenting style, whether they choose to be like me or like someone else, like they want to be their own person. And that's what my parents taught me. I don't want to be like them, so I'm going to do it different. But it also had its own, that I never felt that I was going to be worthy enough. And I've imparted that on my children. And now I'm having to change that. And so that, I can maybe I'll do it better with the grandchildren.
Yeah, well, I think that's what everybody hopes for. Because it's a mess.
Yes, because I
Let's
want
just say
them
it's a
to do it
human
better.
mess. It is a human mess, and you don't escape it unscathed. Okay, so like the expectation to walk around in a human mess perfect is impossible. So I think that if we can lose that expectation of walking around in the human mess perfect, that's not going to happen. You're not going to be a perfect parent. You didn't hide it from your kids. That is actually one of the things I learned from my experience is I can't hide it from my kids. Like, I knew they picked up on stuff. They knew stuff wasn't right. They knew that, no matter how I pretended when they were home, oh, everything's fine, and I pretend. And then, like, as soon as they're gone, I'm crying in my office. Like that, they knew it wasn't right. It doesn't matter how you try to cover it up.
Yes.
Like, it's better to be
Well, and what
honest,
are we,
not like dump the whole
totally.
story on them, but just be like, acknowledge what they're picking up on. Be like, yeah, mommy's not feeling too good right now. It's not your problem,
Well, and it
but
teaches
I love
them about
you.
their personal strength.
Yeah. Like, that's my thing to
Yeah,
do
it's
with,
that.
don't you take it on.
Oh, I love that, Carrie, because I think that's the empowerment that we can teach our children at the end of the day about, like, no, this wasn't something that you're responsible for. And by the way, my mother never blamed me about Rose's disappearance. She never blamed me. However, she was very abusive growing up. And I think that's how she took it out, her own guilt. And I was the reminder of this
Yes.
decision. And she took that out on me. in other ways that, impacted our relationship. As a result of that, though, I said, I'm going to do this very different for my children. I will never do that. I will never abuse them. And I've probably messed them up in other ways.
I
but
don't think we can avoid it. That's what I'm saying. We're walking around in the human mess. We're going to screw up. Plus,
because of
they're more
all coming to the
sensitive.
surface,
Yeah.
sure. But now that things are coming up to the surface, and I'm actually able to, I talked about forgiving myself and other things, but now this was something that I can forgive, and truly, like, being able to go through this journey with my sister Rose, where we're learning about our past and learning this, and however painful it is, her children are going to be paying attention. My children and my siblings, whether or not they're on board right now, my dad, it is, I truly believe it will be a benefit. And because, I really do see this movie as bringing service to others who also have had their own family secret trauma, and being able to give permission for people to see that, what, this happens, it's not uncommon, but let's own that story, and let's change the cycle so we're not repeating this in the next generation. Let's just nip that right now.
I love that, because here's the opportunity. When you reveal the family secrets, the truth is known, and then you can have all the feelings about the truth that you want to have, all the feelings. You can release the feelings because we have technology. We know how to do this now. We can face the feelings without putting story to them. We can actually heal it. We can feel it to heal it, and we can release the stories around it. We can finally know, right? So it's not like the elephant in the room anymore. We can know the truth, and then we can forgive. Because if you
Oh,
if you
yes.
keep the secret, you lose the chance to forgive.
Well, and I see that with my father right now, that he's so angry. And, if I were to be able to talk with him right now, and I would tell my father that, I understand the circumstances, you weren't sure. But it's so important that you forgive yourself. And will it ever happen in the past? Let that go. And, Rose loves the fact that she knows that her biological father is alive, and maybe there's not a lot of time. So here's an opportunity to create a relationship going forward. Almost like this redemption, self-redemption of, like, I'm going to, let past bygones be bygones. But I think that how to forgive is first forgiving ourselves. And it's just like, if we can't love others until we love ourselves first, it's just, it goes in hand, and that's not something that we're all taught. And so when these family traumas happen, and then we're telling our children that you're not, if we don't feel good enough about ourselves, how do we expect them to feel good enough about themselves? And so that's where I believe that what I'd love to be able to do with this is that finding Rose is really, there's so many, there's figurative and literal meanings to finding Rose. So it's not just finding my sister Rose. And I think of a rose as, you have to experience the thorns in order to come to full, beautiful bloom, right? That does not happen unless the thorns exist. And so that we're encountering thorns right now. They're being exposed, and just, you can't grow a rose though without them. And I do believe that in finding Rose, it is going to come to a blossom. And I do hope that not only are we able to share it, this story, and give some hope and maybe some opportunity for dialogue, new dialogue to occur, but for our own family healing, and for Rose to be able to know that regardless of what the story is, she is loved, and we're so delighted that she's in our family. So that's all I can say as far as, like, the lessons in this. It's Berni's journey too.
Yes, Berni's journey with Rose now.
Yeah,
So,
Berni's journey with Rose.
this is so fascinating because it was a really pivotal moment for me in my training early on at the Four Winds when Alberto Vialdo sat there in the class, and he said this a number of times. This is like one of the things he loved to say, is that you chose your parents. You're a soul, and you made a soul contract, and you chose your parents. So I think it's a blessing to have the secrets revealed, because from the perspective of your soul and you chose your parents, what that means is that you get the opportunity to heal all the stuff that you knew was there, but that you didn't want to face or you ignored or whatever, and to clean out the closet, so to speak. You get that opportunity, and you get the opportunity after all the emotions pass. Believe me, you've watched me. I've been on my journey of emotions and feelings about the things that I've realized about my upbringing and how they affected my mental and emotional health, and the diagnoses I had, and how much time in my life I've spent working on myself. And I'm in this place now where I have a new perspective with the second wave release, is that no, I totally signed up for all that because I came to heal these strains of suffering in human family systems. I came to be the embodiment of that, and many of us have.
Mm,
And so,
that's beautiful.
so this is powerful opportunity to have visibility into the healing, to chart the new course for how we can be in family, and still be messy humans. We're going to make mistakes. These are going to happen.
Mhm.
But we have kids that are more and more woke every generation. So we can no longer use lies and hiding as a way to deal with real content. Like, do you tell a 5-year-old like all the sort of details of your divorce? No. But do you acknowledge mommy and daddy are having a really hard time right now and we don't like each other very much? Yes, that's appropriate. That's true. They don't need to know the
Mhm.
details behind it. They need to say, you're not to
Right.
blame. Everything's fine. We love you no matter what. You're fine. Don't take this on. Clear boundaries. Like, this is adult stuff, not kid stuff. We're supposed to take care of you, not the other way around. These are messages that kids need, and we have to be more upfront with it because they're very perceptive. They know stuff's going on. They're not,
Oh, sure they
you're
do.
not hiding it
Oh,
from them.
they know so much when we don't give them enough credit about how much they are already
Yeah.
tapped in, right? Probably when they're first born is when they are the most tapped in because they're still coming fresh without all of the baggage and the burdens. But here's I think too with we're moving into an era where I think that truth, honesty, and again, I probably shouldn't even use truth because again, truth can be subjective. And the way that I think with what your work is and what my work is about bringing light and releasing that judgment is that I think that with we need breath in order to live, and what we're doing as Lightbearers is bringing oxygen to those very difficult conversations, those things that were old energy, old world beliefs, and that oxygen either can be really painful because somebody can feel like they're suffocating. Because
It stirs
I
up the
believe,
dust. It stirs up all the
yeah,
dust and all the yucky.
yes.
It does.
But
I
you
acknowledge
put the
that.
mask on long enough and it feels
It
good,
clears
right?
out.
You're actually getting that life back in.
Yeah.
And that's the hope that, that our kids are going to always have that oxygen mask on versus where you and I have shared our stories that we've felt like suffocated because we couldn't truly breathe our authenticity of who we are in our story.
Yeah. And it's letting go of the attachment of being liked. So
Oh, for sure.
yeah, you just got to do it and know that it hurts when you take the Band-Aid off. It does. It hurts.
Yep, but you got to rip it off and it hurts a little bit at that
With
moment.
love.
But it heals.
It does. It
And
heals.
that's the objective here is that we're wanting others to feel as though, that, yeah, you're not alone and there's healing that's possible. And regardless of the truth of whatever happened, right?
Yeah, because it's subjective. Everything you remember is subjective anyway. So
Well, and by the way, just so
there's
you know,
revisionist history too. But
the treatment that we're using for finding Rose is called the Rashomon effect. The Rashomon effect is based off of Akira Kurosawa's movie. The Rashomon effect is basically that there was a death, there was a murder, and 4 different people are interviewed about what happened. They all were witnesses, and they basically have 4 different stories. None of them are alike, and they all contradict each other. So we're bringing that treatment And we're going to use that for Finding Rose, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. And the viewer can make up their own mind about what they think or believe based on the interviews we collected. But that she's also, Rose has become this beautiful woman who, she could be bitter. She could be really bitter. And she made her life better. And we do have a choice at the end of the day. You know, do things happen to us, or are they happening for us? And we do have a choice. And that's why, and I believe that other message about that generation, about having a choice of how we want to show up. We don't have to have the family karma. We can break it. We are powerful enough to break that.
And we can come back into love as well, and we can come back into forgiveness. There's, you know, somebody's got to initiate that, and the other people have to be willing to receive it. So there's a lot of patience, holding space, holding good intention, you know, after you've ripped the Band-Aid off, and then just kind of waiting for them to come around, you know. And so if you guys are out there, I hope this helped you. If you're, you know, there's a lot of this going on right now out there in the world. A lot of this family secrets exposed, and then the light workers feeling like, gosh, this is really hard. And is this, you know, is this helpful? Because it seems to cause pain. Well, it seems to cause pain because you're exposing something dark and festering that's been there for a long time. It needs to be cleared out. You know, just like when you hurt you get a scrape or something, you know, the doctor will scrub it and put all kinds of antiseptics on it, which hurts like hell, but then it heals, like, and it really heals all the way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're doing. And, you know, you just got to be patient with people's reactions to it and hope they come around to see the wisdom of it, and, you know, to reconnect from a higher place with their hearts open. You know, forgiveness, that's what we're eventually after, is forgiveness.
Forgiveness, and that takes a lot of strength, right?
Yes, it does.
That takes a lot of strength to be able to, one, whether or not we're letting go of what happened, to forgive the individual. We don't forget it, but we let it go, so that we can heal. But I also believe that there's a need to realize that we're all connected, and when one person is hurting, then it causes hurt for other people. And
Especially when you're
so,
connected by DNA.
mm-hmm. So I'm being very hopeful, you know, just ask for good energy. We're finishing the movie project, so watch out for Finding Rose. We're still fundraising, but for people to be able to watch what the story is and having it unfold. I feel this is such a, it's not a responsibility. I feel really grateful for the responsibility of being able to share this. It wasn't easy at first. It definitely had to go through my own processing. But it feels good to know that, Carrie, just that you were so supportive of this journey as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm a disruptor. So I try to do it as much love as possible, and I still am not completely welcomed for the people that I'm exposing secrets. But it's okay. You know, I try to stick to my journey. So, well, you know what? We're light bearers. We got to do the best we can, and you know, this is all in hopefully service to elevating the planet, clearing out our human DNA of all these, you know, negative patterns that have been permeating for a long time. And we can hopefully put some new patterns in place and demonstrate how to do that through these projects like Finding Rose.
Yes, let's
That's our
definitely put
prayer.
those intentions in it. Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. Well, anybody who's looking for information about that, you can check the show notes, and you can track Berni and her progress on this project, and give her some showers of support, because this is a tough thing to do, as I'm sure you guys all know. And hopefully you got something out of this broadcast. If you did, please leave us a comment, leave us a review on iTunes or YouTube or wherever you found it, and let us know that you found it helpful, and share it out with anybody that you think, you know, is going through this kind of thing right now and could use some support, and to know, hey, you're not the only one. And just give us some love so we can reach more people. And now we're going to give kisses. You ready to give kisses, Berni?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Love them.
Okay, here we go. Here they come, people, because we need kisses after all that. Okay. Mwah.
Yeah.
Hope you guys have a wonderful week. We'll see you next week on Soul Nectar Show. Bye for now.
Thank you, Carrie.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.